Clara Brennan pressed her dying son against her chest and screamed into the blizzard. 5-year-old Jamie's body burned with fever, while the Wyoming wind cut through her thin coat like knives. Behind her, 5 more children huddled in an abandoned cabin, waiting for a mother who might not return. She had traveled 1,500 miles to marry a stranger. Now that stranger lay wounded somewhere in town, and her boy was slipping away in her arms. This is the story of a widow who refused to let death win twice. Stay with me until the end, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The letter had arrived on the coldest day in Kentucky. Clara Brennan stood at her kitchen table, 6 children watching her with hollow eyes, while the banker's man read the foreclosure notice aloud. His voice droned on about missed payments and legal proceedings, but Clara heard none of it. She was calculating. How much flour remained in the barrel? How many days until the children's shoes wore through completely? How long she could keep pretending everything would be fine? Mrs. Brennan. The banker's man peered at her over his spectacles. Did you hear what I said? You have 30 days to vacate the premises. I heard you. The bank has been more than patient. 2 years since your husband passed, and I said I heard you. Thomas, her eldest at 14, stepped forward. His jaw was set in that stubborn way that reminded Clara so painfully of Daniel. You can't just take our home. My pa built this house with his own hands. Thomas. Clara's voice was quiet but firm. Take your brothers and sisters outside. But Ma, now. The children filed out. Lizzie carrying 3-year-old Sarah on her hip. Will dragging his feet in silent protest. Mary clutching her rag doll like a lifeline, and little Jamie bouncing despite everything, because he was too young to understand that their world was ending. When the door closed, Clara turned to face the banker's man fully. Mr. Patterson, I've paid what I could when I could. The fever took my husband and nearly took my children. I've sold everything of value. The silver, Daniel's tools, my mother's wedding ring. I'm aware of your circumstances, ma'am, but the bank. Clara's laugh was bitter. Victor Ashford's bank. The same Victor Ashford who offered to forgive our debt if I'd become his wife. Patterson's face reddened. I wouldn't know anything about that. No, I'm sure you wouldn't. Clara walked to the window watching her children in the yard. Thomas had lifted Jamie onto his shoulders. Lizzie was braiding Mary's hair. Will was throwing rocks at a fence post, his throws getting harder and angrier with each one. 30 days, you said? Yes, ma'am. Then I'll need 20 of them to make arrangements. The last 10 to pack what little we have left. Arrangements. Clara didn't answer. She was already thinking about the newspaper advertisement she'd read 3 times that morning, the one she'd hidden in her apron pocket like a shameful secret. Rancher in Wyoming Territory seeks wife. Must be willing to work hard and endure frontier life. Widow with children acceptable. Send letter to Samuel Thornton, Willow Creek, Wyoming. Widow with children acceptable. 4 words that might save them all. 3 weeks later, Clara sat in the cramped passenger car of the Union Pacific, her 6 children arranged around her like satellites orbiting a dying star. The train rattled westward through landscapes that grew increasingly harsh and empty, and Clara watched her old life disappear mile by mile. Ma. Lizzie leaned close, keeping her voice low so the younger ones wouldn't hear. What if he doesn't like us? What if he changes his mind when he sees how many of us there are? He knows how many of you there are. I told him in my letters. But knowing and seeing are different things. Clara couldn't argue with that. In her letters to Samuel Thornton, she'd been honest about her circumstances. 6 children, no money, no skills beyond what any farm wife might have, a dead husband, and a mountain of debt she was running from. His letters back had been brief, but not unkind. He'd described his ranch, 5,000 acres, 800 head of cattle, a house with 6 bedrooms that had sat empty for 20 years. He'd described the town small, but growing a church, a school, a general store. He'd described himself 41 years old, never married, not looking for romance, but for partnership. I need someone to make that house a home, he'd written. Someone to give those empty rooms a purpose. If you're willing to work alongside me to build something together, then come to Wyoming. I'll meet you at the station in Willow Creek on November 15th. November 15th was tomorrow. Ma. Will's voice cut through her thoughts. Jamie's hot again. Clara's stomach dropped. She pressed her hand to Jamie's forehead and felt the fever burning beneath his skin. How long has he been like this? I don't know. He was sleeping and then he woke up all sweaty. Lizzie, get the canteen. Thomas, find the conductor and ask if there's a doctor on board. The children moved, instantly trained by 2 years of crisis to respond without argument. Clara gathered Jamie into her lap, feeling his small body tremble against hers. He was 5 years old and had already survived scarlet fever, whooping cough, and the same winter sickness that had killed his father. His body was tired of fighting. Mama. Jamie's voice was thin and reedy. I don't feel good. I know, baby. I know. We're almost there. Just hold on a little longer. Is the cowboy man going to be nice? Clara swallowed hard. I hope so, sweetheart. I truly hope so. Thomas returned with bad news. No doctor on board. The next stop wasn't for another 6 hours. Clara did what she could, cool cloths on Jamie's forehead. Small sips of water, whispered prayers she wasn't sure anyone was listening to. By the time the train pulled into Willow Creek Station the next afternoon, Jamie's fever had broken, but Clara's nerves had not. She gathered her children on the platform, straightening collars and smoothing hair that refused to be tamed. They looked like what they were, refugees from a life that had collapsed around them, but Clara made them stand tall anyway. Remember, she said, crouching to meet their eyes, this man is giving us a chance, a home. We will be polite, we will be grateful, and we will work hard to deserve what he's offering. Understood? 6 heads nodded. Thomas, you'll help with whatever needs doing around the ranch. Lizzie, you'll help me in the house. Will, you'll mind your tongue and your temper. Mary, stop crying, it'll be all right. Jamie, stay close to me. Sarah, sweetheart, please stop eating your mitten. Clara stood and scanned the platform. A few people milled about, but none of them approached. No tall rancher with a weathered face and honest eyes the way she'd imagined him. No one at all seemed to be waiting for a widow with 6 children. Minutes passed. The platform emptied. The station master gave Clara a pitying look as he locked up his office. Ma'am, you waiting on someone? Samuel Thornton. He was supposed to meet us here. The station master's eyebrows rose. Sam Thornton, from Thornton Creek Ranch. Yes. Do you know him? Everyone knows Sam. The man's expression shifted to something complicated, respect mixed with concern. But ma'am, Sam ain't gonna be meeting nobody today. He got hurt bad 3 days ago. Stampede spooked his cattle and he got trampled trying to save one of his men. Doc Price has been working on him round the clock. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. How bad? Broken ribs, they say. Maybe some inside damage. He's alive, but barely. The station master looked at her children, then back at her. You, the mail-order bride he sent for. Yes. Well. He scratched his beard. That's a predicament. Ranch is 7 miles north of here. Road's rough on a good day, and there's a storm coming in. You got anyone else you can call on? Clara looked at her 6 children, at their tired faces and worn clothes, and the hope in their eyes that was starting to flicker out. No, she said quietly. There's no one else. The station master, his name was Horace, found them a room at the boarding house for the night. It was small and cold and cost money. Clara couldn't afford to spend, but she had no choice. The storm the station master had warned about arrived with a vengeance, turning the world outside their window into a howling white void. Ma. Thomas stood at the window, watching the snow pile up. If Mr. Thornton is hurt bad, what happens to us? I don't know yet. Do we go back to Kentucky? There's nothing to go back to, Thomas. You know that. Then what do we do? Clara didn't answer. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, Jamie's head in her lap. His fever had returned worse than before. His cheeks were flushed an angry red, and his breathing had turned shallow and raspy. Lizzie, go downstairs and ask if there's a doctor in this town. Thomas already asked. The doctor's with Mr. Thornton. He can't come. Clara closed her eyes. Of course the one doctor in this godforsaken town was busy saving the man who was supposed to save them. Mama? Mary's small voice trembled. Is Jamie going to die like Papa? No. Clara's voice was sharp, more forceful than she intended. No one else is dying. Do you hear me? I won't allow it. But as the night wore on and Jamie's fever climbed higher, Clara felt her certainty crumbling. She bathed him with cool water. She made him drink tea with honey. She wrapped him in every blanket they had, and then lay beside him, giving him her own body heat when the shivers came. Mama! Jamie's eyes fluttered open some time after midnight. I saw Papa. Clara's heart stopped. What? In my dream, he said to tell you he's proud, and that the cowboy man is good. He said don't be scared. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks before she could stop them. Did he say anything else? He said... Jamie's brow furrowed with concentration. He said home isn't a place. It's the people you love. Clara pulled her son closer and wept. By morning the storm had passed and Jamie's fever had broken. Both felt like miracles. Clara left the children with strict instructions. Lizzie in charge. Thomas as backup. No one leaves the room, and went downstairs to find answers. The boarding house owner, a stern woman named Mrs. Perkins, was sweeping the front porch when Clara emerged. Mrs. Brennan. The woman's voice was neutral, neither welcoming nor hostile. Your boy doing better? Yes, thank you. The fever broke last night. Glad to hear it. Mrs. Perkins paused her sweeping. Word around town is you're the woman Sam Thornton sent for. That's right. And you've got 6 young ones with you. Also right. Mrs. Perkins studied her for a long moment. Most folks thought Sam had lost his mind when he put that advertisement in the paper. A confirmed bachelor at 41 suddenly looking for a wife, and one with children no less. She shook her head. But Sam always did things his own way. What kind of man is he truly? The best kind. Mrs. Perkins's voice softened slightly. Hard on the outside. Fair to everyone who deserves it. Took in Eli Stone 5 years ago when no one else would hire a black man. Pays his ranch hands better than anyone in the territory. Never cheats at cards, though Lord knows he could. She paused. He's been alone a long time, Mrs. Brennan. Lost someone he loved when he was young. Built walls around himself so high, most folks figured no one would ever climb them. And yet he sent for me. And yet he sent for you. Mrs. Perkins resumed her sweeping. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Clara looked toward the end of town where the road led north to Thornton Creek Ranch. 7 miles through fresh snow. A wounded man who might not survive. 6 children depending on her to make the right choice. I'm going to do what I came here to do, Clara said. I'm going to meet my husband. The livery stable owner, a grizzled man named Hank, was less than enthusiastic about renting Clara a wagon. Road to Thornton's place is barely passable in good weather, he said, eyeing her skeptically. After last night's storm, it'll be buried in drifts. You'll get stuck halfway there and freeze to death. Then I'll need your best horses. Ma'am, I don't think you understand. I understand perfectly. Clara's voice was steel. I have a sick child who needs proper shelter and warmth. I have 5 other children who have been traveling for weeks and deserve a real home. And I have a fiancé. The word felt strange on her tongue. Who is lying injured and probably wondering if I've abandoned him. I am going to that ranch today, Mr. Hank, just Hank. Mr. Hank, I am going to that ranch today. You can help me get there safely, or you can watch me try to walk. Either way, I'm going." Hank stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly a grin spread across his weathered face. "Sam always said he wanted a woman with backbone. Looks like he found one." He jerked his thumb toward the back of the stable. "I'll hitch up my steadiest team, but I'm driving. You'll need someone who knows the road." Clara's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We ain't there." The journey to Thornton Creek Ranch took 4 hours. The road was exactly as bad as Hank had warned, snow-buried and treacherous with drifts that reached the horses' chests in places. But Hank knew every twist and shortcut, and the children huddled together in the wagon bed, sharing warmth and fear in equal measure. Clara sat beside Hank on the driver's bench, Jamie wrapped in blankets in her lap. The boy's fever had stayed down, but he was weak, and every jolt of the wagon made him whimper. "There." Hank pointed through the falling snow. "That's Thornton land. See the fence line?" Clara squinted. Through the white curtain she could barely make out wooden posts stretching toward the horizon. "How much land does he have?" 5,000 acres, give or take. Biggest spread in the territory." Hank clucked at the horses. "House is another mile up. You'll see it once we clear this rise." The house, when it finally appeared, stole Clara's breath. It was larger than she'd imagined. 2 stories of solid timber and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides and actual glass windows that glinted in the weak winter sun. Behind it stood an enormous barn, several outbuildings and corrals that seemed to stretch forever. This was no struggling homestead. This was an empire. "Intimidating, ain't it?" Hank said, reading her expression. "Sam built most of it himself first 10 years he was here. Man works harder than any 3 men I know." The wagon pulled up to the main house, and immediately the front door swung open. A young black man emerged, his expression shifting from wariness to recognition to relief in quick succession. "You must be Mrs. Brennan." He hurried down the porch steps. "I'm Eli Stone, Sam's foreman. We've been expecting you, well, hoping I should say after the storm, and—" He trailed off, taking in the wagon full of children. "Lord have mercy. Sam said you had children. He didn't say you had an army." 6 children, Clara said, climbing down from the wagon with Jamie in her arms. "And they're well behaved, I assure you." "I don't doubt it, ma'am." Eli reached up to help Lizzie down, then Thomas, then the rest. "Let's get everyone inside and warmed up. The house has been cold. Sam ain't exactly been in a state to keep fires going, but I started one in the main room this morning when I heard you might be coming." "How is he, Mr. Thornton?" Eli's expression darkened. "Doc says he'll live, but it's gonna be a long recovery. 3 broken ribs, and something got bruised up inside. He's been in and out of consciousness for 3 days." He paused. "He asked about you, though, when he was lucid. Asked if his bride had arrived yet." Clara felt something shift in her chest. "Take me to him." The bedroom was dim curtains drawn against the harsh winter light. The smell hit Clara first, sickness and sweat, and the sharp tang of medicinal herbs. Then she saw him. Samuel Thornton lay in a bed that seemed too small for his frame. Even injured, even pale, and still, he was formidable. Dark hair shot through with gray at the temples. A strong jaw shadowed with days of stubble. Broad shoulders that spoke of decades of physical labor. He was not handsome in the conventional sense, but there was something compelling about him, a solidity, a presence. His eyes opened as Clara approached. They were gray, storm cloud gray, and they fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You came." His voice was rough, barely more than a whisper. "They said, the storm. Thought maybe you'd turned back." "I don't turn back." A ghost of a smile crossed his cracked lips. "No. I didn't reckon you would. Your letters." He winced, pressing a hand to his ribs. "Your letters had backbone in every line." "Mr. Thornton." "Sam. If you're gonna be my wife, call me Sam." Sam. The name felt strange and intimate on her tongue. You need rest. We can talk later. Need to say this now. He struggled to push himself up, and Clara moved instinctively to help him, sliding an arm behind his shoulders. He was burning with fever, she realized. His skin was furnace hot through his nightshirt. You should lie down. Just listen. His gray eyes found hers again. I know this ain't what you expected. I was supposed to meet you at the station. Give you a proper welcome. Show you the ranch. Let you decide if you could live here before we made anything official. He coughed, and the sound was wet and terrible. Instead, I'm laid up like a useless old bull, and you're stuck in a strange place with no one to help you. I'm not stuck anywhere. I chose to come here. You chose to come to a working ranch with a healthy rancher, not a sick room with a man who might die before— Stop! Clara's voice was sharp enough to cut. Don't you dare talk about dying. I've buried one husband. I won't bury another. Sam stared at her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then impossibly, he laughed. It was weak, and it clearly hurt him, but it was real. Lord woman, you're exactly what I asked for. What you asked for was someone willing to work hard and endure frontier life. Well, I've been working hard since I was 12 years old, and I've endured more than most people survive. If you think a little snow and a man with broken ribs is going to scare me off, you don't know anything about Kentucky women. I'm starting to learn. His hand found hers, his grip surprisingly strong. Your children. Are they all right? They're downstairs. My youngest son has been ill, but he's recovering. Bring them to me. Tomorrow when I'm stronger. I want to meet them. You need to rest. I need to see what my future looks like. Sam's eyes were drifting closed, the effort of speaking draining his limited strength. I've waited 20 years for a family, Clara Brennan. I can wait one more night. Clara sat beside his bed long after he'd fallen asleep, still holding his hand, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. Downstairs, controlled chaos reigned. Eli had built up the fire until the main room blazed with warmth. The children had spread out across the space, Thomas examining the rifle rack on the wall. Lizzie exploring the kitchen. Will and Mary playing some complicated game involving 2 chairs and an imaginary horse. Jamie sleeping on a worn sofa, and Sarah toddling after Eli like a duckling following its mother. Mrs. Brennan? Eli looked up as Clara descended the stairs. How's Sam? Sleeping. His fever is high. Doc's been coming twice a day. He says as long as the fever doesn't get worse, Sam should pull through. Eli hesitated. But it's going to be weeks before he's on his feet. Maybe longer. Clara surveyed the room, the dust on the furniture, the bare walls, the sense of a house that had been occupied but never truly lived in. Then we'd better get to work. This place needs a woman's touch, and I've got 5 able-bodied helpers. Ma, Thomas appeared at her elbow. There's someone at the door. Before Clara could respond, the door swung open and a woman swept in. She was perhaps 60, silver-haired, and sharp-eyed, wrapped in a fur coat that probably cost more than everything Clara had ever owned combined. So, the woman's gaze swept the room, taking in the children, the mess, the stranger standing in Samuel Thornton's house. The mail-order bride actually came. Mrs. Crawford. Eli's voice held a warning note. This isn't the best time. Nonsense. It's the perfect time. The woman, Mrs. Crawford, walked a slow circle around Clara, examining her the way one might examine livestock at market. Thinner than I expected. And younger. How old are you, girl? 34, ma'am, and I'm not a girl. No, I don't suppose you are. Mrs. Crawford's eyes landed on Thomas, who had positioned himself protectively near his mother. That one has fire. Good. He'll need it out here. With respect, ma'am, I don't know who you are or why you're in this house. I'm Martha Crawford. I own the 2nd largest ranch in this territory, and I was Samuel Thornton's friend before you were born. Her voice could have frozen the Missouri River. "When I heard he'd sent away for a wife, a widow with 6 children no less, I told him he'd lost his mind. Now here you are, moved into his house, while he lies upstairs half dead, and I'm supposed to believe you're not some fortune hunter who smelled money." Clara felt her children drawing closer, felt Thomas's hand on her arm, felt Lizzie's anxious gaze on her back. These were the people she'd have to live among. This woman could make her life heaven or hell. But Clara Brennan hadn't walked through fire to be intimidated by a rich woman with a sharp tongue. "Mrs. Crawford," Clara's voice was steady as stone, "I came to this territory with $6.47 to my name. I came because a man I'd never met offered me and my children a home when no one else would. I came because I'm 34 years old, and my husband is dead, and my children need stability, and I was too proud to beg, and too stubborn to give up." She took a step toward the older woman, meeting those sharp eyes without flinching. "I don't want Sam Thornton's money. I want a roof over my children's heads. I want a chance to build something that can't be taken away. I want to give my family the future my husband died trying to provide. If that makes me a fortune hunter in your eyes, then I reckon we just define the term differently." Silence filled the room. Then slowly Martha Crawford smiled. It transformed her face, turning her from adversary to something almost like an ally. "Well," she pulled off her gloves with deliberate care. "It seems Samuel didn't lose his mind after all. He might have actually found a woman worthy of this place." Martha Crawford stayed for 2 hours that first day. She asked questions that felt more like interrogations, examined the children with the critical eye of a woman who'd raised 5 of her own, and made Clara repeat her entire life story twice. By the time she left, Clara felt wrung out like a dish rag, but something had shifted. "She likes you," Eli said, after the door closed behind Mrs. Crawford. "Don't let the sharp tongue fool you. If she didn't approve, she would have said so and left inside of 10 minutes. That was her approving. "Yes, ma'am." That was Martha Crawford giving her blessing. Eli's smile was tired, but genuine. "She'll spread the word around town. Won't stop all the gossip, but it'll help." Clara sank into a chair by the fire, suddenly exhausted. Jamie was still sleeping on the sofa, his breathing steady and even. The other children had scattered through the house, exploring their new home with the tentative curiosity of animals released into unfamiliar territory. "Eli." Clara's voice was quiet. "What really happened to Sam?" "The station master said a stampede, but it was my fault." The words came out heavy, weighted with guilt. "We were moving the herd to winter pasture. Storms spooked them. I got knocked off my horse right in the path of 800 head of panicked cattle." Eli's hands clenched at his sides. "Sam rode in and pulled me clear. Got trampled himself doing it. 3 ribs broken, internal bleeding. Doc said if Sam had been anyone else, he'd be dead. He saved your life." "He did, and now he might die because of it." Clara studied the young man's face, seeing the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "How long have you worked for Sam?" 5 years. He found me in Cheyenne half-starved and looking for work. No one would hire me. Being a free black man don't mean much when folks still look at you like property." Eli's jaw tightened. "Sam offered me a job on the spot. Foreman wages. Said he didn't care what color a man was, only whether he could do the work. And you've been with him ever since." "This ranch is my home, Mrs. Brennan. Sam is the closest thing to family I've got." Eli met her eyes directly. "I'll do whatever it takes to help him recover. And if that means helping you and your children settle in, then that's what I'll do." Clara nodded slowly. "Then we'd better get started. Where do the children sleep?" The next few hours were a blur of activity. Eli showed Clara the 6 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, each one bare and dusty, but solid. The children claimed spaces with the enthusiasm of pioneers staking territory. Thomas took the room nearest the stairs, positioning himself as guardian. Lizzie and Mary would share the largest room with its window overlooking the ranch. Will demanded the room farthest from everyone else, and Clara let him have it, recognizing his need for space. Jamie and Sarah would sleep in the room connected to the master bedroom, close enough that Clara could hear them in the night. The master bedroom itself gave Clara pause. Sam's room. Soon to be their room if the marriage went forward. She stood in the doorway looking at the simple furniture, the worn quilt on the bed, the single photograph on the nightstand. That's Margaret. Eli had appeared beside her. Maggie Sullivan. Sam was going to marry her 20 years ago. She died of consumption before they could. Clara picked up the photograph. A young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile looked back at her. He loved her. More than anything. After she passed, Sam threw himself into building this ranch. Said if he couldn't have love, he'd have land. Eli's voice was soft. I think he's been waiting all these years for a reason to try again. Clara set the photograph down carefully. And you think I'm that reason? I think you might be, if you're willing. That night, Clara made her rounds the way she had every night for 14 years of motherhood. She checked on Sarah first, the 3-year-old already asleep in the small bed Eli had found in the attic. Then Jamie, whose fever had stayed down, but whose face still looked too pale. Mary was reading by candlelight, and Clara made her blow it out with a kiss on the forehead. Will pretended to be asleep, and Clara pretended to believe him. Lizzie was actually sleeping, exhausted from the journey and the stress of being the eldest daughter. Thomas was sitting up in bed waiting for her. Ma. His voice was too serious for 14. We need to talk. Clara sat on the edge of his bed. I know. This man, this Sam Thornton, you don't know him, not really. Letters aren't the same as knowing someone. You're right, they're not. And now he's hurt, maybe dying, and we're living in his house, eating his food, sleeping in his beds. What happens if he doesn't make it? What happens to us then? Clara took her son's hand, feeling the calluses that had formed from 2 years of trying to be the man of the family. I don't know, Thomas. I wish I could promise you everything will be fine, but I can't. What I can promise is that I'll fight for this family. Whatever happens, wherever we end up, I will fight for us. You shouldn't have to fight alone. I'm not alone. I have you. I have all of you. Clara squeezed his hand. And maybe, if we're lucky, we'll have Sam Thornton too. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. I don't trust him yet. That's fair. Trust has to be earned. But I'll give him a chance. For you. For the little ones. Thomas's jaw set in that stubborn way. But if he hurts this family, I don't care how big his ranch is. I'll make him regret it. Clara kissed her son's forehead the way she used to when he was small. That's all I ask. A chance. She left Thomas's room and made her way downstairs, too restless to sleep. The house was quiet, the fire burning low. Clara added another log and stood by the window, looking out at the snow-covered land that might become her home. A sound from upstairs made her turn. Footsteps slow and uneven. Then a voice weak but determined. You shouldn't be up. Sam Thornton stood on the landing, one hand braced against the wall, the other pressed to his bandaged ribs. He was wearing a nightshirt and trousers, and he looked like death warmed over, but his gray eyes were clear and focused on her. You shouldn't be up, Clara repeated, already moving toward the stairs. The doctor said complete bed rest. Doc Price is an old woman. Sam took another step down, wincing. I've been lying in that bed for 3 days. A man can only stare at the ceiling so long before he goes mad. You'll tear your stitches. Then you'd better help me to a chair before I fall down these stairs and tear everything else. Clara climbed the stairs and slipped her shoulder under his arm, taking his weight. He was heavy, solid muscle under the illness, and she felt the heat of his fever through his clothes. Stubborn man, she muttered. Stubborn woman, he replied. We should get along just fine. They made it to the main room where Clara deposited Sam in the large chair by the fire. He sat back with a groan, closing his eyes, and she saw sweat beading on his forehead from the effort. That was stupid, she said. Probably. He opened his eyes, and there was something almost like humor in them. But I wanted to see my house. See what you've done with it. We've been here half a day. I haven't had time to do anything. You've done plenty. Sam's gaze moved around the room, taking in the small changes. The children's coats hung by the door. A pair of tiny mittens drying by the fire. A rag doll left on the sofa. Signs of life in a house that had been empty for too long. It already feels different. Warmer. Clara sat in the chair across from him, studying his face in the firelight. You took a terrible risk saving Eli. You could have died. Eli's my family. Only family I've had for years. Sam's voice was matter-of-fact. A man doesn't let his family die if he can help it. And now you have more family. 6 children you've never met and a wife you've only known through letters. Scared yet? Terrified, Clara admitted. But I don't have the luxury of letting fear stop me. Sam nodded slowly. Tell me about them. Your children. The letters said names and ages, but that's just facts. Tell me who they are. So Clara told him. She told him about Thomas, who had tried to be the man of the house since Daniel died, who worked too hard and worried too much and needed a father figure, even though he'd deny it with his last breath. She told him about Lizzie the dreamer, who read every book she could get her hands on and wanted to see the world beyond Kentucky. She told him about Will, her wild one who got into fights and caused trouble, but had a heart bigger than his 10-year-old body could contain. She told him about Mary, the sensitive one who still cried for her father every night and who needed gentleness above all else. She told him about Jamie, who had almost died 3 times and still laughed more than any child she'd ever known. And she told him about Sarah, her baby, who barely remembered Daniel and who desperately needed a father to remember. Sam listened without interrupting. When Clara finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Daniel, he said finally. Your husband. What was he like? Good. Clara's voice caught slightly. He was good. Not perfect, but good. He worked hard. He loved his children. He never raised his hand to any of us, not once. He used to sing while he worked old Irish songs his mother taught him. She wiped at her eyes, embarrassed. He died trying to save our farm. The fever took him, but it was the debt that killed him, really. He worked himself to exhaustion trying to keep us afloat, and when the sickness came, he was too worn down to fight it. I'm sorry. Don't be. He gave me 14 years and 6 beautiful children. More than some women get in a lifetime. Clara straightened her shoulders. I won't pretend I've stopped loving him, Sam. I won't pretend you're replacing him. But I can promise you this, if you give me and my children a home, I will be a good wife to you. I'll work hard. I'll be faithful. I'll try to make you happy. Sam reached out and took her hand. His grip was weak but warm. I don't need you to stop loving your husband, Clara. Love isn't a finite thing. It doesn't run out. His gray eyes held hers. I just need you to be willing to let me in. To let me be part of this family you've built. Can you do that? Clara looked at this man, this stranger who had offered her everything when she had nothing, who had nearly died saving his foreman, and now sat in a chair by the fire asking not for love, but for a chance. Yes, she said, I can do that. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Clara took over the running of the household with the efficiency of a woman who'd been managing chaos for 14 years. She cleaned rooms that hadn't been properly cleaned in decades. She organized a kitchen that had been used by cowboys who thought salt and pepper were exotic spices. She made the house into a home one small change at a time. The children adapted in their own ways. Thomas threw himself into ranch work, following Eli around like a shadow, learning everything he could about cattle and horses and the hard realities of frontier life. Lizzie took over the kitchen garden, sketching elaborate designs for what they would plant come spring. Will got into trouble exactly 3 times in the first week, once for climbing on the barn roof, once for trying to ride a horse that wasn't broken yet, and once for getting into a fistfight with a ranch hand who'd made a comment about his mother. That last incident brought Clara running from the house, heart pounding, to find her 10-year-old son being held back by Eli while a man twice his size nursed a bloody nose. What happened? Clara demanded. Your boy's got a hell of a right hook, ma'am." The ranch hand, a man named Pete, actually sounded impressed, despite the blood dripping from his face. "I may have said something I shouldn't have, about you being a mail-order bride." The kid took offense. Clara looked at Will, whose face was flushed with anger, and something that looked a lot like pride. "William James Brennan. We do not solve problems with our fists. He called you a—" "I don't care what he called me. You apologize right now." "But Ma—" "Now, William." Will's jaw tightened, but he met Pete's eyes. "I'm sorry for hitting you. I ain't sorry for defending my mother." Pete wiped the blood from his nose and surprised everyone by laughing. "Fair enough, boy. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry too. Your ma seems like a decent woman. I had no right to say otherwise." Later that evening, Clara found Sam on the porch. He'd graduated from bed rest to sitting up, and from sitting up to short walks around the house. The doctor said he was healing faster than expected, but Clara could still see the pain he tried to hide with every movement. "Heard about Will's adventure," Sam said as she sat beside him. "Pete came to me, apologized, said your boy had more courage than most men he knows. Will has too much courage and not enough sense. He's going to get himself killed one of these days. Maybe." Sam's voice was thoughtful. "Or maybe he just needs somewhere to put all that fire. The ranch has plenty of work for a boy with energy to burn. He's 10 years old. I was 10 when I started working my first cattle drive. Hard work never hurt a boy." Sam turned to look at her. "You're a good mother, Clara. Those children are proof of that, but you can't protect them from everything. Sometimes you have to let them fight their own battles." Clara was quiet for a moment. "Is that what you did when you were young?" "Had no choice. My pa died when I was 8. Ma followed him a year later. I raised myself mostly. Worked ranches from Texas to Montana before I had enough saved to buy my own land." Sam's eyes went distant. "Swore I'd never have children. Didn't want to risk leaving them the way my folks left me. And now you have 6. Now I have 6. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Funny how life works. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the snow in shades of gold and pink. Clara found herself thinking about how strange it was to feel at peace with a man she'd known for barely a week. "Sam," she spoke without looking at him, "Martha Crawford came by again today, while you were resting. Did she interrogate you some more?" "No, she brought food and advice." Clara hesitated. "She said there are people in town who don't approve of our arrangement. A widow with 6 children moving in with an unmarried man. She said we should get married as soon as possible before the gossip gets out of hand." Sam was quiet for a moment. "What do you think?" "I think she's right. For the children's sake, if nothing else. They don't need to hear whispers about their mother." "Then we'll do it this week. Soon as I can stand through a ceremony without falling over." Sam's hand found hers in the darkness. "I know this isn't how you imagined it. No courtship, no romance, just practicality and necessity. Romance is for people with the luxury of choice. I don't have that luxury." Clara turned to face him. "But I'm not unhappy, Sam. I want you to know that. Whatever this is between us, whatever it becomes, I'm not unhappy." "Neither am I." 3 days later, Reverend Michael Hayes rode out from town to perform the ceremony. It was simple and brief. Clara wore her best dress, the blue one she'd saved for special occasions. Sam wore a clean shirt and managed to stand for the entire 20 minutes, though he was gray-faced and sweating by the end. The children stood as witnesses. Thomas looked suspicious. Lizzie cried happy tears. Will fidgeted until Eli put a hand on his shoulder. Mary clutched her rag doll and watched with solemn eyes. Jamie grinned the whole time, not entirely understanding, but caught up in the occasion. Sarah fell asleep halfway through. When Reverend Hayes pronounced them man and wife, Sam kissed Clara's cheek. It was chaste and appropriate, and nothing like the passionate kisses in the dime novels Lizzie read when she thought no one was watching. But it was real, and it was theirs. "Mrs. Thornton." Sam's voice was rough with fatigue and something else, something warmer. "Welcome to the family." "Mr. Thornton." Clara felt a smile tugging at her lips despite everything. "I suppose I live here now." That night, after the children were in bed and Eli had returned to the bunkhouse, Clara and Sam sat together by the fire. They were married now, legally bound, but the bedroom arrangement remained unchanged. Sam was still too weak for anything more than sleep, and Clara was still too uncertain to push. "Tell me about Victor Ashford." Sam's voice cut through her thoughts. "Martha mentioned his name, said he was the one who foreclosed on your farm." Clara's stomach tightened. What else did she say? That he's been buying up land all across the territory, that he recently opened a bank in Willow Creek. Sam's gray eyes were sharp, despite his weakness. That he has a reputation for pursuing things he wants until he gets them. He's a dangerous man. Clara chose her words carefully. He wanted me to marry him after Daniel died. Said he'd forgive our debts if I became his wife. You refused. I refused. So he took our farm instead. Clara's hands clenched in her lap. I thought coming to Wyoming would put enough distance between us. But if he's here, if he's in Willow Creek, he won't touch you. Sam's voice was steel. He won't touch any member of this family. I don't care how much money he has or how many politicians he owns. This is my land, my town, my family. Victor Ashford can go straight to hell. Clara looked at this man, her husband, who could barely walk across a room, but spoke with the authority of someone who'd never backed down from a fight. You don't know him, Sam. You don't know what he's capable of. I know men like him. I've been dealing with them my whole life. Sam reached out and took her hand. You're not alone anymore, Clara. Whatever comes, we face it together. For the first time in 2 years, Clara allowed herself to believe it might be true. The next morning brought trouble in the form of an official-looking letter delivered by a nervous young man on horseback. From the bank in town, ma'am. The messenger couldn't meet Clara's eyes. Mr. Ashford asked me to deliver it personally. Clara's blood ran cold, but she kept her voice steady. Thank you. You may go. She waited until the messenger had ridden away before opening the letter. The words blurred and swam before her eyes, but the message was clear enough. Dear Mrs. Thornton, please accept my congratulations on your recent marriage. I was surprised to learn that you had left Kentucky without settling our business affairs. There is still the matter of the outstanding balance on your late husband's debts, which I'm afraid followed you to Wyoming. I would be pleased to discuss repayment options at your earliest convenience. My office is located above the Willow Creek Bank. I look forward to renewing our acquaintance. Your servant, Victor Mason Ashford. Clara read the letter 3 times, feeling sicker with each pass. The debt. Daniel's debt. She had assumed it died with the foreclosure that taking the farm had settled the balance. But of course, Victor wouldn't let her go that easily. Ma. Thomas appeared in the doorway, his face concerned. You look pale. What's wrong? Nothing. Clara folded the letter quickly. Ranch business. Nothing for you to worry about. But Thomas wasn't fooled. He never was. Is it that man, the one from Kentucky? Clara should have known she couldn't keep secrets from her eldest. How did you know about Victor Ashford? I'm 14, not stupid. I heard things, after Pa died when that man kept coming around. Thomas's young face hardened. He scared you, I could tell. He's here, Thomas, in Willow Creek. He's opened a bank. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then, with the calm determination that made him seem so much older than his years, he said, Does Sam know? I told him last night, before this letter came. Then tell him about this, too. Show him the letter. Thomas stepped forward and put a hand on his mother's arm. You married him, so we'd have someone to help carry the weight. Let him help Ma. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Clara looked at her son, this boy, who had been forced to grow up too fast, who had carried burdens no child should carry, who still somehow managed to see the situation more clearly than she could. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from watching you." Clara found Sam in the study going over ranch accounts, despite the doctor's orders to rest. He looked up when she entered, and his expression shifted immediately when he saw her face. "What happened?" She handed him the letter without speaking. Sam read it once, twice. His jaw tightened with each pass. When he looked up, his gray eyes were cold as a Wyoming winter. "He followed you." "It seems so." "This debt he mentions. How much?" $300, or at least it was 300 when I left Kentucky. With Victor's interest rates, it could be double that by now. "I'll pay it." "Sam." "I'll pay it and be done with him." Sam's voice brooked no argument. $300, 600, whatever it takes. I won't have this man holding threats over my family. It's not that simple. Victor doesn't want money. He wants... Clara stopped, heat rising to her cheeks. "He wants you." Sam said it flatly, like a statement of fact. "That's what this is about. The debt is just an excuse." "Yes." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood slowly and carefully and crossed to where Clara stood. He was still weak, still healing, but in that moment he seemed larger than life. "Listen to me, Clara Thornton. You are my wife. Those children are my children now. This ranch, this land, this life, it belongs to all of us together." He cupped her face in his hands, his grip gentle but firm. "Victor Ashford can send all the letters he wants. He can threaten and scheme and play his games. But he will not take what's mine. Not now. Not ever." Clara felt tears prickling at her eyes. "You can't fight him, Sam. You can barely stand." "Then I'll fight him sitting down." A hint of dark humor crossed his face. "Wouldn't be the first time I faced a snake from a chair." Despite everything, Clara laughed. It came out watery and broken, but it was real. "You're a stubborn man, Samuel Thornton. Matched well with a stubborn woman." Sam pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. "We'll get through this. Together." That word again. Together. Clara was beginning to think it might be the most powerful word in any language. The days passed, and winter deepened its grip on the Wyoming territory. Snow fell and fell and fell again, burying the land under a white blanket that seemed endless. The children adapted to the rhythms of ranch life with the resilience that only children possess. Thomas worked alongside Eli every day, learning the 1,000 tasks required to keep a cattle operation running through winter. He came home exhausted each evening, but there was a new light in his eyes, a sense of purpose that Clara hadn't seen since before Daniel died. Lizzie discovered the small library Sam had accumulated over 20 years, and she devoured books like a starving person at a feast. Sam, watching her read one evening quietly, ordered 3 more crates of books from a catalog. When they arrived, Lizzie cried. Will's energy found an outlet in the endless physical work of ranch life. He chopped wood and hauled water and helped break ice in the horse troughs each morning. He still got into trouble, but less often, and the ranch hands stopped seeing him as a nuisance and started seeing him as a help. Mary blossomed under the attention of Eli, who seemed to understand her sensitive nature without being told. He let her help feed the barn cats, showed her where the best wildflowers would grow come spring, and told her stories about his own childhood that made her laugh instead of cry. Jamie recovered fully from his fever and became Sam's shadow. The boy followed the rancher everywhere his healing body could manage, asking endless questions about cattle and horses and how things worked. Sam answered every question with patience Clara hadn't expected. And Sarah. Little Sarah, who had been afraid of everyone and everything, crawled into Sam's lap one evening without being invited and fell asleep there. Sam looked at Clara over the child's head with an expression that said more than words ever could. They were becoming a family. Against all odds, against all logic, they were becoming whole. But Victor Ashford had not forgotten them. And the storm he was gathering would make the Wyoming winter look gentle by comparison. The letter from Victor Ashford was only the beginning. 2 weeks after the wedding, Clara rode into town with Lizzie to pick up supplies from Crawford's general store. The trip should have been simple. It was anything but. They were loading flour into the wagon when a voice cut through the cold morning air. A voice Clara had hoped never to hear again. Mrs. Brennan, or should I say, Mrs. Thornton, now. Clara's hands froze on the flour sack. She turned slowly, keeping her body between Victor and Lizzie. He stood on the boardwalk outside the bank, immaculately dressed in a dark suit that cost more than most ranchers made in a year. His smile was the same one she remembered from Kentucky, polished, predatory. Mr. Ashford. Clara's voice was steady despite the ice in her veins. I received your letter. And yet you didn't come to see me. Victor descended the steps with deliberate grace. I'm wounded, Clara, after everything we meant to each other. We meant nothing to each other. You wanted something I wasn't willing to give. Ma. Lizzie's voice was small and frightened. Who is this man? Victor's eyes shifted to the girl, and Clara felt her protective instincts flare white-hot. This must be one of your lovely daughters. Elizabeth, isn't it I remember seeing her at your husband's funeral? Don't speak to her. Clara stepped fully in front of Lizzie. Don't look at her. Whatever business you have is with me. Such fire. Victor's smile widened. That's what I always admired about you, Clara. That spirit. Daniel never deserved you, you know. A simple farmer with simple ambitions. You were meant for greater things. I was meant for exactly the life I chose. First with Daniel, now with Sam. Ah, yes. The wounded rancher. Victor's tone dripped with false sympathy. I heard about his accident. Tragic, really. A man his age broken and bedridden. One has to wonder if he'll ever fully recover. Clara's hands clenched into fists. Sam is recovering just fine. Is he? Because I've heard otherwise. Victor stepped closer, lowering his voice. I've heard he can barely walk across a room. That his ranch hands are doing all the work. That without significant capital investment, Thornton Creek Ranch won't survive another winter. You've heard wrong. Have I? Victor reached into his coat and withdrew a folded document. This is a copy of the lien I've placed on your late husband's estate. $347 plus interest plus legal fees. The total comes to just over $500 now. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. You can't collect a Kentucky debt in Wyoming. Can't I? The law is remarkably flexible when you know the right people. Victor tucked the document away. I'm a patient man, Clara. I can wait for what I want, but I'd rather not wait. So here's my proposal. Come to dinner with me, tomorrow evening. Just the two of us. We'll discuss terms. I'm a married woman. You're a woman with 6 children and a husband who can't protect you. There's a difference. Victor tipped his hat with mocking courtesy. Tomorrow evening, Clara. The hotel dining room. 7 o'clock. Don't keep me waiting. He walked away before Clara could respond, leaving her shaking with rage and fear in equal measure. Ma. Lizzie's hand found hers. Ma, who was that man? Why did he say those things about Pa? Clara pulled her daughter close, holding on tight. He's nobody, sweetheart. He's nobody. But they both knew that wasn't true. The ride back to the ranch was silent. Clara's mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. She couldn't tell Sam about Victor's invitation. He was still recovering, still weak. The stress could set him back weeks. But she couldn't hide it either. Thomas's words echoed in her head. Let him help. You don't have to do this alone anymore. When they reached the ranch, Clara sent Lizzie inside with the supplies and went looking for her husband. She found him in the barn, leaning against a stall door, while Eli worked on a horse's hoof nearby. Clara. Sam's face lit up when he saw her, then immediately darkened. What happened? How do you know something happened? Because I know you. He pushed away from the stall, moving toward her with the careful steps of a man still learning to trust his body. "You've got that look. The one you had when you showed me Ashford's letter." Clara glanced at Eli, who straightened up and wiped his hands on his trousers. "I'll give you two some privacy." "No." Clara's voice stopped him. "Stay. Your family. You should hear this too." She told them everything. Victor's appearance in town, his threats, his invitation to dinner. By the time she finished, Sam's face had gone hard as granite. "He touched you." "No, he didn't touch me." "But he threatened you, in front of our daughter." Sam's voice was low and dangerous. "He stood on a public street and threatened my wife." "Sam, Eli." Sam turned to his foreman. "I need you to ride into town, talk to Martha Crawford, tell her what happened, then talk to Hank at the livery and Pete Morrison at the saloon. Tell them Victor Ashford has made himself an enemy of Thornton Creek Ranch." "Sam, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to remind this eastern snake that he's not in Kentucky anymore." Sam's gray eyes found Clara's. "You're not going to that dinner." "I know. And you're not going into town alone again. Not until this is settled. I can take care of myself." "I know you can, but you don't have to." Sam reached out and took her hands. "This is what marriage means, Clara. We face things together, even when one of us is too stubborn to ask for help." Despite everything, Clara felt a small smile tugging at her lips. "Are you talking about me or yourself?" "Both. We're a matched pair of mules, you and I." Eli left for town within the hour. Sam spent the rest of the afternoon in the study, writing letters and making plans that he wouldn't share with Clara, no matter how many times she asked. The children sensed the tension and stayed quiet, even Will subdued by the storm clouds gathering over the household. That evening after dinner, Thomas cornered Clara in the kitchen. "It's that man from Kentucky, isn't it? The one who took our farm." Clara didn't see any point in lying. "Yes." "What does he want?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Ma." Thomas's voice was firm. "I'm 14. I'm old enough to know what's happening to this family." Clara looked at her son, really looked at him. Somewhere in the past 2 years, he'd grown into someone she barely recognized. Taller than her now, broader in the shoulders, with Daniel's stubborn jaw and her own fierce eyes. "He wants to use our debt as leverage," Clara said finally. "He wants me to spend time with him, to leave Sam." Thomas's expression went cold in a way that frightened her. "He wants you to be his mistress." "Thomas." "That's what it means, Ma. I'm not a child. I understand what men like him want." Thomas's hands clenched at his sides. "Does Sam know?" "Yes." "What's he going to do about it?" "I don't know yet. He's planning something." Thomas nodded slowly. "Good. Because if Sam doesn't handle this, I will. Thomas Daniel Brennan, you will do no such thing. He threatened our family, Ma. He stood in the street and threatened you in front of Lizzie." Thomas's voice shook with barely contained rage. "Pa would have killed him for that. I won't do any less." "Your father would have wanted you to stay safe, to protect your brothers and sisters." Clara grabbed her son's shoulders, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Promise me, Thomas. Promise me you won't do anything reckless." Thomas was silent for a long moment. Then reluctantly he nodded. "I promise. But if that man hurts you, if he hurts anyone in this family, no promise in the world will hold me back." Clara pulled him into a hug, holding on tight. Her boy. Her firstborn. So much like his father, it made her heart ache. "I love you," she whispered. "Whatever happens, remember that." "I love you too, Ma. That's why I can't let anyone hurt you." The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Martha Crawford arrived first, sweeping into the house with the authority of a woman who'd never been denied anything in her life. "Clara." She took Clara's hands in her gloved ones. Eli told me what happened. That insufferable man. I've already spoken to Reverend Hayes and Doc Price. By noon, everyone in Willow Creek will know what kind of snake Victor Ashford really is. Martha, I don't want to cause trouble. You're not causing trouble. He is. Martha's eyes flashed with righteous anger. This is our town, Clara. Our community. We don't take kindly to outsiders threatening our own. Before Clara could respond, there was another knock at the door. This time, it was Hank from the livery, accompanied by 3 other men Clara recognized from town. Mrs. Thornton. Hank removed his hat. We heard what happened yesterday. Wanted you to know we don't hold with that kind of behavior. Not in Willow Creek? I appreciate that, but... Sam around, one of the other men asked. We'd like to speak with him. Sam appeared in the doorway, moving more steadily than he had in weeks. The anger seemed to have burned away some of his weakness, leaving behind something harder and more determined. Gentlemen. He nodded to each man in turn. I appreciate you coming. What do you need from us, Sam? Right now, just your eyes and ears. Ashford's planning something. I can feel it. I need to know when he makes his move. You've got it. Hank's voice was firm. That man so much as looks at your wife wrong, you'll know about it within the hour. The men filed out, and Martha Crawford followed after extracting a promise from Clara to attend her weekly ladies' social. When the house was quiet again, Clara turned to Sam with wonder in her eyes. They came to help. All of them. People I barely know. This is what community means out here. Sam's voice was soft. We look out for our own. You're one of us now, Clara. You and the children. That means something. I've never had that before. In Kentucky, after Daniel died, people avoided me, like widowhood was contagious. Their loss. Sam took her hand. Our gain. 2 days passed without incident. Clara began to hope that Victor had been bluffing, that the show of community support had scared him off. But on the 3rd day, everything changed. It started with Will bursting through the front door, breathless and terrified. Mama, come quick. There's men at the north fence line. They're cutting our wire. Clara ran to find Sam, who was already pulling on his coat, despite the pain it clearly caused him. Stay here, he ordered. Keep the children inside. Sam, you can barely... I said stay here. His voice was sharp, commanding. Eli! The foreman appeared within seconds, rifle in hand. I saw them from the bunkhouse. 6 men, maybe 7. They've got wire cutters and they're working fast. Get the other hands. We're riding out. Sam. Clara grabbed his arm. Your ribs. The doctor said... The doctor isn't here. Sam's gray eyes met hers, and she saw something she hadn't seen before. Fear. Not for himself, but for her. For the children. For everything they'd built together. If they cut that fence line, our cattle will scatter across half the territory. We'll lose everything. Then let me come with you. No. I can shoot. Daniel taught me. I know you can. Sam's voice softened slightly. But I need you here. Protecting the children. If this is a diversion, if Ashford's real target is the house... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Clara understood. She was the one Victor wanted. The ranch, the cattle, the fence lines. They were just means to an end. Victor was trying to draw Sam away from the house. Go, she said. I'll handle things here. Sam kissed her quick and fierce. I love you, Clara Thornton. I love you too. Now go save our cattle. She watched him ride out with Eli and 3 other ranch hands, then turned to find Thomas standing behind her with Daniel's old rifle in his hands. I found it in the attic, he said before she could ask. Cleaned and loaded, just in case. Clara should have told him to put it away. Should have reminded him that he was 14 years old and had no business holding a weapon. But she looked at her son's face, saw the determination there, and remembered what it felt like to be young and desperate to protect the people you loved. Stay inside, she said. Keep your brothers and sisters in the back bedroom. Don't open the door for anyone unless it's me or Sam. What about you? I'll be watching from the front. Ma, do as I say, Thomas, please. He went gathering the younger children with quiet efficiency. Clara watched them disappear down the hallway, then turned to face the front door. The wait was agony. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind sent her heart racing. She stood at the window with her own rifle, the one Sam had given her on their third day of marriage, and watched the road that led to town. An hour passed, then two. Clara was beginning to think it had been a false alarm when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Not from the north where Sam had ridden, from the south, from town. Clara's grip tightened on her rifle. She watched as a single rider emerged from the tree line, and her blood ran cold. Victor Ashford. He stopped his horse 50 yards from the house and dismounted with theatrical flourish. His smile was visible even at this distance. "Clara!" His voice carried across the snow. "I know you're in there. Come out and talk to me." Clara didn't move. Her mind raced through possibilities. Sam was miles away. The ranch hands were with him. She was alone with 6 children and a rifle she'd only fired a handful of times. "I'm not leaving until we settle this," Victor called. "You can hide in there all day, but I'll still be here when that crippled husband of yours comes crawling back." "Ma." Thomas's voice came from behind her. "Let me stay with the children." "Ma, please." "I said stay with the children, Thomas." Clara's voice was steel. "No matter what happens, you do not come out of that room. Do you understand me?" Thomas's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Clara waited until she heard the bedroom door close. Then she took a deep breath, opened the front door, and stepped onto the porch. Victor's smile widened when he saw her. "There she is, the woman who broke my heart." "I never had your heart to break, Victor. You don't have one." Harsh words from a woman standing alone against the wind. Victor spread his hands. "Where's your husband, Clara? Where are all those townspeople who were supposed to protect you? Busy dealing with the men you sent to cut our fence line." "Clever, isn't it? Simple diversion. Draw away the defenders and walk right through the front door." Victor began walking toward the house. "You should have come to dinner when I asked. We could have resolved this like civilized people." Clara raised her rifle. "Stop right there." Victor stopped, but his smile didn't waver. "Are you going to shoot me, Clara? In cold blood, in front of your children?" "My children are inside where they can't see anything." "But they'll hear it, the gunshot. They'll hear it, and they'll live with that memory forever." Victor's voice dropped to something almost gentle. "I don't want to hurt you, Clara. I never did. I just want what should have been mine. I was never yours. You could have been. If Daniel had accepted my offer, if he'd taken the money I offered him to divorce you." Clara's blood turned to ice. "What? Oh, he didn't tell you." Victor's smile turned cruel. "I approached your husband 6 months before he died, offered him $500 to give you up, set you free as it were. He refused. Called me names I won't repeat in front of a lady, so I had to find other ways to get what I wanted." "You killed him." The words came out barely above a whisper. "You killed Daniel." "I didn't kill anyone. The fever killed him. I just made sure he was tired enough that his body couldn't fight it." Victor shrugged. "Extra work. Missed payments that forced him to take odd jobs. A loan here, a favor there. By the time the sickness came, he was worn down to nothing. Nature did the rest." Clara's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the rifle steady. "You murdered my husband." "I removed an obstacle. There's a difference." Something inside Clara snapped. Something that had been holding on by threads since Daniel died, since she'd lost her home, since she'd traveled 1,500 miles to marry a stranger just to survive. She pulled the trigger. The shot went wide, kicking up snow 3 feet from Victor's boots. But it wiped the smile off his face. "You missed." His voice had gone flat dangerous. "That was a warning." Clara's hands had stopped shaking. She felt eerily calm, like she was watching herself from outside her body. The next one won't miss. You don't have the stomach for murder, Clara. You killed my husband. You destroyed my family. You followed me across a continent because you couldn't accept that a woman had the audacity to refuse you. Clara's voice was low and hard. I have the stomach for whatever it takes to protect my children. Victor studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he reached into his coat. Clara's finger tightened on the trigger. Don't. I'm just getting a document. He withdrew a folded paper, holding it up. This is the original lien on your husband's estate, the only copy. If something were to happen to me, no one would be able to collect on Daniel's debts. Your children would be free. What are you saying? I'm saying we can end this right now. You come with me willingly, and I burn this paper. Your precious Sam can keep his ranch. Your children can have their stability. Everyone wins. Except me. You'd have everything you ever wanted, Clara. Money, security, a husband who adores you. A husband who murdered my first husband. A husband who threatened my children. A husband I would have to look at every day knowing what he really is. Clara shook her head slowly. There's not enough money in the world. Victor's face twisted with something ugly. Then you'll lose everything. I'll take this ranch piece by piece. I'll destroy Sam Thornton's reputation. I'll make sure no one in this territory will hire your precious Thomas or marry your daughters. You'll watch your children starve because you were too proud to accept what I was offering. Maybe. Clara's voice was quiet. Or maybe I'll just shoot you and take my chances with the law. You wouldn't dare. Try me. They stood there in the snow, predator and prey hunter, and hunted while the Wyoming wind howled around them. Clara felt the cold seeping through her clothes, felt the weight of the rifle in her hands, felt the presence of her children hiding in the back room. And then she heard it. Hoofbeats. A lot of them. Victor heard it too. His head snapped toward the north, and for the first time, real fear flickered across his face. Sam rode at the front of the group, but he wasn't alone. Behind him came Eli and the ranch hands, but also Hank from the livery, and Pete Morrison, and at least a dozen other men from town. Martha Crawford's carriage brought up the rear, the older woman sitting ramrod straight, with a shotgun across her lap. It's over, Ashford. Sam's voice rang across the snow as he reined in his horse. We caught your men. They're singing like birds about who paid them to cut our fence lines. Victor took a step back, his composure cracking. You can't prove anything. Can't I? Sam dismounted slowly, carefully, but his eyes never left Victor. I've got 6 witnesses who say you paid them $50 each to destroy Thornton property. I've got a letter you wrote to a land speculator in Denver outlining your plans to acquire ranches across the territory through intimidation and fraud. And I've got a wife who just told me you confessed to killing her first husband. Victor's face went gray. She's lying. Clara doesn't lie. Sam stepped forward until he was standing between Victor and the house, his body a shield. You're done, Ashford. The sheriff's on his way from Cheyenne. You can wait for him in the town jail, or you can try to run and see how far you get with 20 rifles aimed at your back. Victor looked around at the wall of hostile faces surrounding him, at the rifles, at the grim determination in every eye. For one terrible moment, Clara thought he might go for his gun. She saw his hand twitch toward his hip, saw the calculation in his eyes. Then the fight went out of him. His shoulders slumped. His hand fell to his side. This isn't over, he said quietly. I have lawyers. I have connections. You have nothing. Sam's voice was flat. Not anymore. 2 men from town stepped forward to take Victor's arms. He didn't resist as they led him toward the road, but he turned his head one last time to look at Clara. You could have had everything, he said. Clara met his eyes without flinching. I already have everything. They took Victor away. The crowd began to disperse, some men heading back to town, others lingering to check on the fence line damage. Martha Crawford descended from her carriage and swept into the house, already calling out orders about hot tea and warm blankets. But Clara barely noticed any of it. She was watching Sam, who stood in the yard looking up at her with something in his eyes she couldn't quite name. "You were going to shoot him," Sam said quietly. "When I rode up, you had that rifle pointed at his chest." "Yes." "Would you have done it if we hadn't arrived?" Clara thought about the question. Really thought about it. "I don't know. Maybe. To protect my children, to protect this family." She shook her head. "I'd like to think I wouldn't have. But I don't know." Sam climbed the porch steps, slow and careful, until he stood before her. His face was gray with exhaustion and pain, but his eyes were warm. "You're magnificent," he said. "You know that I'm a mother." Clara's voice cracked slightly. "I do what I have to do." Sam pulled her into his arms, and Clara finally let herself break. The tears came in great, racking sobs, releasing 2 years of grief and fear and loneliness. Sam held her through all of it, his strong arms steady despite his injuries. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "It's really over. He killed Daniel. Sam, he killed my husband." "I know. I heard. And he'll pay for it. I promise you, Clara. He'll pay for everything he's done." Behind them, the front door opened. Thomas stood there with Sarah in his arms, and the other children clustered behind him, their faces pale with fear and confusion. "Ma." Mary's small voice trembled. "Ma, is the bad man gone?" Clara pulled back from Sam's embrace and opened her arms. "He's gone, baby. He's gone." The children rushed to her, all of them at once, a tangle of arms and tears and clinging hands. Clara held them close, breathing in the scent of them, feeling their hearts beat against her own. They were safe. All of them. Together. Sam stood apart, watching with an expression that Clara couldn't read. She reached out one hand toward him. "You too," she said. "You're part of this family." Sam hesitated for just a moment. Then he stepped forward and let himself be pulled into the embrace, his arms wrapping around as many children as he could reach. They stood there on the porch as the Wyoming sun began to set, a family forged in fire, tested by storms, and stronger for having survived them both. The days following Victor Ashford's arrest passed in a blur of activity and emotion. The sheriff arrived from Cheyenne 3 days later, a weathered man named Robert Crane, who listened to everyone's testimony with careful attention and took detailed notes in a leather-bound journal. Clara told her story twice. Once in the kitchen with Sam beside her, and once alone with the sheriff in the study. Both times, she forced herself to repeat Victor's confession about Daniel. Both times the words felt like broken glass in her throat. "Mrs. Thornton." Sheriff Crane closed his journal and met her eyes. "I won't lie to you. Proving that Ashford deliberately contributed to your first husband's death will be difficult. He didn't poison him. He didn't physically harm him. What he did was create circumstances that weakened a man already vulnerable to illness. So he gets away with it." "I didn't say that." The sheriff's voice was kind but firm. "What I said was proving murder will be difficult. But we've got him cold on conspiracy to destroy property, intimidation, and attempted fraud. He hired men to cut fence lines. He threatened you directly. He's been running schemes across 3 territories. Crane stood tucking his journal into his coat. "Victor Ashford is going to prison, Mrs. Thornton. Maybe not for as long as he deserves, but he's going." After the sheriff left, Clara sat alone in the study for a long time. Sam found her there, as evening fell, staring at nothing, her hands folded in her lap. "Clara." He lowered himself into the chair across from her, still moving carefully around his healing ribs. "Talk to me." "I keep thinking about Daniel. About those last months." Clara's voice was distant, hollow. "He was so tired all the time, working himself to the bone trying to keep the farm afloat. I begged him to rest, to let me take on more, but he wouldn't. He said a man provides for his family." She looked up at Sam with eyes red from crying. "Victor did that. Victor made him work himself to death, and I didn't even know." You couldn't have known. I should have. I should have seen that something was wrong. The extra work that kept appearing. The loans that came due at the worst possible times. The buyers who suddenly backed out of deals. Clara's hands clenched. It was all Victor, all of it. And I was too blind to see. You weren't blind. You were surviving. Sam leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. Clara, listened to me. What Victor did was calculated and cruel. He spent months, maybe years, setting traps you couldn't have seen coming. The fault is his, not yours. Never yours. Daniel died protecting me. He died because he wouldn't give me up. He died because Victor Ashford is a monster who couldn't accept that a woman had the right to refuse him. Sam's voice hardened. Don't you dare take that guilt onto yourself. Daniel wouldn't want that. He'd want you to live, to raise those children, to be happy. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly she reached out and took Sam's hand. How do you do that? She asked softly. Do what? Know exactly what to say. What I need to hear. Sam's weathered face softened. I don't always know, but I'm learning. That's what marriage is, isn't it? Learning each other. I suppose it is. They sat together in the gathering darkness, hands intertwined, letting the silence speak what words couldn't. The weeks that followed brought slow healing to everyone at Thornton Creek Ranch. Sam's ribs mended properly, and by mid-December he was riding again, though Clara fussed at him every time he stayed out too long. The cut fence lines were repaired. The scattered cattle were rounded up. The ranch hands who'd worried about their jobs breathed easier when Sam announced that everyone was staying on through winter. But the deeper healing happened inside the house in moments both large and small. Thomas was the hardest to reach. He'd carried anger for so long that letting it go felt like losing part of himself. Clara watched him struggle with it, watched him pick fights with Will and snap at Lizzie, and retreat into sullen silences that could last for days. It was Sam who finally broke through. Clara came into the barn one evening looking for Thomas, and found him there with Sam, both of them working on a saddle that needed mending. They didn't notice her at first, and she hung back in the shadows listening. You're still angry, Sam said without looking up from his work. That's all right. Anger's useful sometimes. I'm not angry. Thomas's voice was flat defensive. Son, I've been angry most of my life. I know what it looks like. Sam set down his tools and turned to face the boy fully. You want to know something nobody else knows, something I've never told anyone. Thomas's hands stilled on the leather. What? When Maggie died, I wanted to kill someone. Anyone. I was so full of rage I could barely see straight. She was 22 years old, Thomas. 22. We were supposed to have a whole life together, and God or fate or whatever you want to call it took her away. Left me with nothing but a piece of land and a hole in my chest where my heart used to be. What did you do? I built this ranch. Every fence post, every beam, every nail. I pounded my anger into this land until there wasn't anything left but exhaustion. Sam's voice was rough with old pain. It worked mostly. Kept me alive long enough to realize that living angry isn't really living at all. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. I wanted to kill him, Victor Ashford. When Ma told me what he'd done to Pa, I wanted to ride into town and put a bullet in his head. I know. Is that wrong? To want that? Wanting isn't wrong. Acting on it would have been. Sam put a hand on Thomas's shoulder. Your pa would be proud of you, Thomas. The way you've taken care of your mother, your brothers and sisters. The way you've stepped up when everything was falling apart. That takes more courage than shooting a man ever could. I don't feel brave. I feel scared all the time. That's what brave is. Being scared and doing what needs doing anyway. Sam squeezed his shoulder. You're going to be a fine man, Thomas Brennan. Your pa's spirit lives in you. Don't let anger poison that. Clara slipped away before they saw her tears streaming down her face. She'd worried so much about Thomas, about the weight he carried, about the rage she could see building behind his eyes. But Sam had found a way in. Sam had given her son permission to feel what he felt without being consumed by it. That night, Thomas sought her out before bed. He stood in the doorway of her room, looking young and uncertain in a way she hadn't seen in years. "Ma." "Yes, sweetheart." "I'm sorry for being difficult, for being angry all the time, for—" Clara crossed the room and pulled her son into her arms. He was taller than her now, but in that moment he felt like the small boy who used to crawl into her lap during thunderstorms. "You have nothing to apologize for," she whispered. "Nothing at all." "I love you, Ma." "I love you too, Thomas, more than you'll ever know." Christmas came to Thornton Creek Ranch with all the chaos and joy that 6 children could muster. Martha Crawford arrived with a wagon full of gifts. Eli spent 3 days cooking a feast that could have fed the entire territory. The house rang with laughter and music, and the sound of wrapping paper being torn apart by eager hands. Clara watched it all from the doorway of the main room, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real peace. Not just the absence of crisis, but the presence of something warm and good and lasting. Sam appeared beside her, pressing a cup of warm cider into her hands. "What are you thinking about?" "Last Christmas. We were in Kentucky in a house that was about to be taken from us, eating beans and cornbread, because that's all we could afford. The children tried so hard to be cheerful, but I could see the fear in their eyes. They knew something was wrong." Clara took a sip of cider. "This year they're not afraid anymore. They're just happy." "You gave them that." "We gave them that. Together." Sam slipped an arm around her waist. "I have something for you. A Christmas gift. But I wanted to give it to you privately. Sam, you've already given me everything. This house, this life. I don't need— Just come with me." He led her to the study and closed the door behind them. From his desk drawer, he withdrew a folded document and handed it to her. Clara opened it, read the first few lines, and felt her heart stop. "Sam, this is the deed to half the ranch, your half. Legally binding, witnessed by Judge Harrison in Cheyenne." Sam's voice was steady, but she could hear the emotion beneath it. "I wanted you to know that this is yours, Clara. Not just while I'm alive, but always. No matter what happens, no one can ever take your home away again." Clara couldn't speak. The document shook in her trembling hands. "You came to me with nothing," Sam continued, "because a man you'd never met offered you a chance. You trusted me with your children, your future, your heart. This is my way of trusting you back. Everything I have, everything I've built, half of it belongs to you now. Not because you're my wife, but because you're my partner." Clara set the document down carefully and threw her arms around Sam's neck. She kissed him, not the gentle kisses they'd shared before, but something deeper and more desperate. "I love you," she said against his lips. "I love you so much." "I love you too." Sam pulled back slightly to look at her face. "Is that a yes to the gift?" "It's a yes to everything. The gift, the ranch, the life." Clara laughed through her tears. "I came here expecting a business arrangement and found a family instead. Funny how that works." "Hilarious." They held each other in the quiet of the study, while Christmas chaos continued around them. 2 people who had found something neither expected in the harsh Wyoming winter. January brought bitter cold and news from Cheyenne. Victor Ashford had been convicted on multiple charges and sentenced to 15 years in prison. The judge had been particularly harsh after hearing testimony about his schemes across the territory. 15 years. Clara sat at the kitchen table, staring at the letter from Sheriff Crane. He'll be an old man when he gets out. If he survives that long. Sam's voice held no sympathy. Prison isn't kind to men like him. Men used to having money and power. They don't last. Is it wrong that I hope he doesn't survive, I mean? After what he did to Daniel, to you. Sam shook his head. I'd say it's human. Clara folded the letter and tucked it away. I want to stop thinking about him. I want to stop letting him take up space in my head. Then let him go. He's locked up. He can't hurt us anymore. Sam reached across the table and took her hand. The best revenge is living well, Clara. Building something beautiful on the ruins of what he tried to destroy. When did you become so wise? I've had a good teacher these past few months. Clara smiled despite herself. Flatterer. Just telling the truth. The door burst open and Jamie tumbled in, followed by Sarah toddling on unsteady legs. Mama, Papa, Sam. Jamie's face was flushed with cold and excitement. Eli says the new foal is coming. Can we watch, please, please, please? Clara looked at Sam, who shrugged with barely concealed amusement. Might as well, he said. Kid won't give us peace until we say yes. They trooped out to the barn together, the whole family gathering to witness new life entering the world. The mare, a beautiful chestnut named Copper, labored for 2 hours, while the children watched with wide eyes and held breaths. When the foal finally arrived, wet and wobbly and perfect, Mary burst into tears. What's wrong, sweetheart? Clara knelt beside her daughter. Nothing's wrong. Mary wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. It's just so beautiful. New things being born. New beginnings. Clara pulled her daughter close. Yes, baby. New beginnings. Will never one for sentiment broke the moment by asking if he could name the foal. What do you want to name it? Sam asked. Hope. Will's voice was surprisingly serious. Because that's what we've got now, hope. Sam and Clara exchanged a look over the children's heads. Hope it is, Sam said quietly. February brought a thaw brief but welcome, and with it came unexpected visitors. A young woman appeared at the ranch one morning traveling alone, looking exhausted and scared. Clara was the first to reach her. Can I help you, miss? The woman looked up and Clara felt the world tilt beneath her feet. Clara. The woman's voice was barely a whisper. Clara, is that really you? Lily. Clara grabbed the porch railing to steady herself. Lily, what are you doing here? Her younger sister fell into her arms, sobbing. Clara hadn't seen Lily since she'd left Kentucky. They'd exchanged a few letters, brief and careful, but Lily had stayed behind with their stepmother. Clara had assumed she was happy. She had assumed wrong. I couldn't stay anymore, Lily said through her tears. After Victor was arrested, everything came out. What he'd done, how Eleanor had known about his schemes and helped him. She pulled back to look at Clara with red-rimmed eyes. She helped him, Clara. Our stepmother helped Victor destroy your family. She wanted you gone. She wanted everything you had. Clara felt cold despite the mild weather. Eleanor knew. She introduced Victor to Daniel in the first place. Set the whole thing in motion. When I found out, I confronted her and she... Lily's voice broke. She told me I was no longer welcome in her home. That I was as much of a disappointment as you'd been. So you came here. I didn't know where else to go. I'm so sorry, Clara. I should have known. I should have seen what she was doing. I should have... Stop. Clara's voice was firm but gentle. None of this is your fault. You were a child when it started. You didn't know. I'm not a child anymore. I'm 23 years old, and I've spent the last 5 years being blind to what was happening in my own home. Sam appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion. He took in the scene with a quick glance and immediately understood. This your sister? He asked Clara. Yes, Lily. This is my husband, Samuel Thornton. Sam, this is Lily Mitchell. Ma'am. Sam tipped his hat. You look like you've had a long journey. Why don't we get you inside, get some food in you, and then you can tell us everything. Lily looked at Sam, then at Clara, then back at Sam. You'd take me in, just like that, without knowing anything about me. You're Clara's family. That makes you my family too. Sam stepped aside to let them enter. Besides, we've got plenty of room. What's one more? Lily stayed. It wasn't always easy. She and Clara had to rebuild a relationship that had been strained by distance and secrets. But Lily fit into the rhythm of ranch life with surprising ease. She helped Clara with the household. She played with the children. She even started walking out with Eli, much to everyone's surprise, and Eli's poorly concealed delight. "Your sister's something special," Eli told Clara one evening. "I hope you don't mind me saying so." "I don't mind at all. She deserves someone good, someone who'll treat her right." "I intend to, ma'am, if she'll have me." "Have you asked her?" Eli's dark face flushed. "Not yet. Wanted to talk to you first, and to Sam. Make sure it was all right." Clara touched his arm gently. "Eli, you saved Sam's life. You've been part of this family since before I arrived. You don't need our permission to fall in love." "Maybe not. But I wanted your blessing anyway." "You have it. Both of you have it." March brought spring in earnest, the snow melting and the land coming alive again. Clara stood on the porch one morning, watching the children play in the yard, while Sam worked with the ranch hands on the spring roundup. Lily appeared beside her with 2 cups of coffee. "You look happy." "I am happy." Clara took the cup with a grateful smile. "I didn't think I could be again. After Daniel, after everything. I thought happiness was something I'd used up. And now I know better. Happiness isn't finite. It doesn't run out." Clara sipped her coffee. "That's something Sam taught me. Love isn't finite either. You can love Daniel and grieve him and still love Sam and build a future with him. They're not mutually exclusive." "That's very wise. I've had good teachers." They watched as Jamie chased Sarah across the yard, both of them shrieking with laughter. Thomas and Will were helping Eli with something near the barn. Lizzie sat under a tree with a book, her favorite spot, now that the weather was warm enough. Mary was picking early wildflowers, already planning the garden she and Clara would plant together. "I never thanked you," Lily said quietly, "for taking me in, for not blaming me for what Eleanor did." "Why would I blame you? You didn't know." "I should have. I should have looked harder, asked more questions." Lily's voice was heavy with guilt. "When Victor started coming around asking about you, I thought he was just a suitor who couldn't accept rejection. I never imagined. None of us imagined. That's how people like Victor and Eleanor operate. They count on us not imagining the worst." Clara turned to face her sister fully. "What matters now is that you're here. You're safe. And you have a chance to build your own life on your own terms." "Do you really think so?" "I know so." Clara smiled. "And I think a certain foreman would agree with me." Lily blushed furiously. "Has everyone noticed?" "Everyone has noticed. We're just being polite about it." "He hasn't asked me yet, not officially." "He will. He's working up the courage." "How do you know?" "Because he asked for my blessing last week." Clara laughed at her sister's expression. "Don't look so surprised. Eli is a gentleman. He wanted to do things properly. And you gave it your blessing." "Of course I did. Lily, you deserve to be loved by someone good." "Eli is good. He's the best man I know besides Sam." Lily was quiet for a moment, then softly, "I love you, Clara. I know I didn't say it enough before. I didn't show it enough. But I love you. I love you too, little sister. I always have." They embraced on the porch, while the Wyoming wind carried the sounds of children's laughter across the land. That evening, the whole family gathered for dinner. Sam at the head of the table, Clara at the other end, the children filling the space between them. Eli had joined them, sitting beside Lily with a nervousness that everyone pretended not to notice. "I want to say something." Sam stood, his glass raised. "A year ago, I was a lonely old rancher with more land than sense, and an empty house that echoed every time I walked through it. I put an advertisement in a newspaper looking for a partner. What I found was so much more. He looked at Clara, his gray eyes soft with emotion. You came to me with nothing but 6 children and a heart full of courage. You survived a blizzard and a dying son and a wounded husband who wasn't much use to anyone. You faced down a monster who'd destroyed your family and stood your ground when most people would have run. Sam's voice grew rough. You taught me what family really means. Not blood, not obligation, but choice. Every day choosing to love each other, choosing to show up, choosing to build something worth having. He raised his glass higher. To Clara, to the children, to Lily and Eli, to everyone at this table who makes this house a home, I love you all. We love you too, Papa Sam. Jamie's voice rang out and everyone laughed. Papa Sam. Sam repeated the name, softly wonder in his voice. Yeah, I reckon I am. Clara felt tears on her cheeks and didn't bother to wipe them away. Around her, her children were smiling. Her sister was glowing. Her husband was looking at her like she'd hung the moon and stars. She had come to Wyoming with nothing. She had found everything. Spring settled over Thornton Creek Ranch like a blessing long overdue. The snow retreated to the highest mountain peaks, the creek swelled with meltwater, and the land burst into color after months of white and gray. Clara woke each morning to birdsong and the distant lowing of cattle sounds that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat. But something else had changed. Something she hadn't told anyone yet. She stood at the bedroom window, one hand pressed to her stomach, watching Sam ride out with Thomas and Eli for the morning rounds. Her husband moved easily now, no trace of the injury that had nearly killed him. He laughed at something Thomas said, the sound carrying across the yard, and Clara felt her heart squeeze with love so fierce it almost hurt. Mama! Mary's voice came from the doorway. Are you all right? You look pale. Clara turned, arranging her face into a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just thinking. About what? About how lucky we are. All of us. Mary crossed the room and slipped her hand into Clara's. At 8 years old, she was still the sensitive one, the child who felt everything deeply and worried about everyone constantly. I like it here, Mama. I like Papa Sam and Eli and Aunt Lily. I like our home. So do I, baby. So do I. Clara kept her secret for another week, waiting until she was certain. She'd been wrong before years ago, and the disappointment had been crushing. She wouldn't put Sam through that. Wouldn't put herself through it. But when Doc Price confirmed what she already knew, Clara couldn't contain it any longer. She found Sam in the barn that evening, brushing down his horse after a long day. He looked up when she entered, his weathered face softening the way it always did when he saw her. Clara, everything all right? Everything's fine. She walked toward him slowly, her heart pounding. More than fine, actually. I have something to tell you. Sam set down the brush, giving her his full attention. I'm listening. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air between them. Sam didn't move, didn't speak. For one terrible moment, Clara thought she'd made a mistake. Maybe he didn't want more children. Maybe 6 was enough. Maybe, say that again. I'm pregnant. Doc Price confirmed it this afternoon. I'm about 2 months along. Sam crossed the distance between them in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. He held her so tight she could barely breathe, his face buried in her hair. A baby, he whispered. Our baby. Our baby. Clara felt tears streaming down her face. I wasn't sure how you'd react. We already have 6 children, and you never asked for... Clara. Sam pulled back to look at her, and she saw that his eyes were wet too. I spent 20 years thinking I'd never have a family, that I'd die alone in this house with nothing but cattle and regret. Then you came. You and your beautiful, chaotic, wonderful children. And now you're telling me there's going to be more. Is that a good thing? That's the best thing. Sam kissed her deep and fierce and full of joy. That's the best damn thing anyone's ever told me." They stood together in the barn holding each other while the horses shifted in their stalls and the evening light turned golden through the windows. "When do we tell the children?" Sam asked finally. "Tonight, at dinner. I don't think I can keep it secret much longer." "They're going to be excited, Jamie especially. He's been asking when he'll get a baby brother." Clara laughed. "What if it's a girl? Then he'll learn to be a good big brother to his baby sister." Sam's hand found her stomach resting there gently. "Boy or girl, this child is going to be loved by all of us." The announcement that evening went exactly as Clara had predicted. Jamie shouted with excitement. Sarah didn't fully understand, but clapped along with everyone else. Will declared that he hoped it was a boy because there were too many girls already. Mary burst into tears of happiness. Lizzie immediately started planning the nursery, and Thomas stood quiet for a moment before crossing to his mother and embracing her. "Pa would be happy," he said softly, "knowing you're happy, knowing we're all taken care of." "I think so too, sweetheart." Lily cried and hugged her sister. Eli shook Sam's hand with a grin that split his face. Martha Crawford, who happened to be visiting, declared that she would personally host the baby shower, and anyone who objected could take it up with her. Later that night, after the children were in bed and the house had settled into quiet, Clara and Sam sat together on the porch. The stars blazed overhead, more stars than Clara had ever seen in Kentucky, and the air smelled of spring growth and distant rain. "I need to tell you something," Sam said. "Something I should have said a while ago." Clara turned to look at him. "What is it?" "When I put that advertisement in the paper, I told myself I was just looking for someone to help around the house. A practical arrangement. Nothing more." Sam's voice was rough with emotion. "I didn't believe I could love anyone again. Didn't think I had it in me. Maggie had taken all of that when she died, or so I thought." "Sam, let me finish, please." He took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle. "What I'm trying to say is that you proved me wrong. Every day, in every way, you proved me wrong. You came to me broken and grieving and scared, but instead of falling apart, you built something. You built us, this family, this life. You did that, Clara. We did it together. Maybe, but you showed me it was possible." Sam raised her hand to his lips. "I love you. Not because you gave me children, or because you work hard, or because you're convenient. I love you because you're you. Stubborn and brave and kind and beautiful. I love you because choosing you is the best choice I've ever made." Clara leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. "I love you too. I didn't think I could. After Daniel, I thought that part of me was dead. But you brought it back. You and your patience and your quiet strength and your willingness to let me heal at my own pace. We healed each other. Yes, we did." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead, two people who had found each other against all odds and built something worth keeping. April brought Eli's proposal to Lily. He did it properly, getting down on one knee in the yard, while half the ranch watched from various windows, pretending not to look. Lily said yes before he finished the question, and the celebration that followed lasted well into the night. "Your sister's going to be family twice over now," Sam observed, watching Eli spin Lily around in a clumsy dance. "Sister-in-law and, what do you call your sister's husband? Brother-in-law. So Eli will be my brother-in-law's brother-in-law." Clara laughed. "I think we can just call him family and leave it at that." The wedding was set for June, when the weather would be warm enough for an outdoor ceremony. Lily wanted it simple, just family and close friends. But word spread through Willow Creek, and by the time the day arrived, half the town had shown up to witness the foreman and the sister of the rancher's wife pledge their lives to each other. Clara stood beside her sister as Lily repeated her vows, feeling the weight of everything that had brought them to this moment. A year ago she had been a widow with nothing, fleeing a monster who'd destroyed her family. Now she stood in the Wyoming sunshine, pregnant with a new life, watching her sister marry a good man, surrounded by children who were thriving, and a husband who loved her. Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Lily's voice rang clear and strong. I absolutely do. When the ceremony ended and the dancing began, Clara slipped away to catch her breath. She was 4 months along now, and the baby had started to make its presence known in ways that left her exhausted by mid-afternoon. She found a quiet spot beneath a cottonwood tree and lowered herself onto a bench someone had thoughtfully placed there. From this vantage point, she could see the whole celebration. Thomas was dancing with Mary, both of them, laughing at their own clumsiness. Will was stuffing his face at the food table. Jamie was chasing Sarah in circles, while Lizzie watched with fond exasperation. Sam was talking with some of the ranchers, his gestures animated in a way she rarely saw. Mind if I join you? Clara looked up to find Martha Crawford standing beside her, a glass of punch in each hand. Please, I could use the company. Martha settled onto the bench with a sigh. Getting too old for these things. My feet are killing me. You look like you're enjoying yourself despite the feat. I am. Martha handed Clara one of the glasses. I'm watching that family of yours and thinking about what a difference a year makes. It doesn't feel like a year. No, it never does. Martha sipped her punch. You know, when you first arrived, I thought Sam had lost his mind. A mail-order bride with 6 children, moving in while he was half dead from a trampling. It seemed like a disaster waiting to happen. And now I think it's the best thing that ever happened to him, to all of you. Martha turned to look at Clara directly. You've done something remarkable, Clara Thornton. You took a broken situation and made it whole. That takes a special kind of strength. I'm not that special. I just did what any mother would do. Nonsense. Most people faced with what you faced would have given up, would have crumbled under the weight. But you didn't. You kept fighting. For your children, for yourself, for this family you've built. Martha's voice softened. That's special whether you want to admit it or not. Clara felt tears prickling at her eyes. Pregnancy had made her emotional in ways she wasn't used to. Thank you, Martha, for everything. For the support, the friendship, the terrifying interrogation when I first arrived. Martha laughed. That interrogation was necessary. Someone had to make sure you were worthy of Sam. And am I worthy? More than worthy. You're exactly what he needed. Martha stood, brushing off her skirts. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to make sure those ranch hands aren't drinking all the good whiskey. Some of us have standards to maintain. Clara watched her go, smiling despite herself. A year ago, she would have wilted under Martha Crawford's scrutiny. Now they were friends, real friends, the kind who could speak hard truths and laugh together afterward. Sam appeared a few minutes later, dropping onto the bench beside her with a groan of relief. My feet are killing me. That's exactly what Martha just said. Great minds think alike. Sam slipped an arm around her shoulders. How are you feeling? You look tired. I am tired. Growing a person is exhausting work. Do you want to go inside, lie down for a while? No. I want to stay here and watch our family celebrate. Clara leaned into him. I want to remember this moment. All of it. The music and the laughter and the way Thomas is finally dancing without looking like he's walking to his own execution. Sam chuckled. He's gotten better. Eli's been teaching him. Eli's been teaching him a lot of things. He's a good man, the best I've ever known. Sam was quiet for a moment. I almost lost him, you know. The day of the stampede. If I'd been a second slower, the cattle would have trampled us both. But you weren't slower. You saved him. And got myself busted up in the process. Almost died. Sam's voice was thoughtful. Funny how things work out. If I hadn't been hurt, I would have met you at the station. We would have had a proper introduction. None of that desperate scramble through the blizzard. Would you prefer that the proper introduction? No. Sam's answer was immediate. I wouldn't change a thing. The way it happened, the way we had to fight for each other from the very beginning. That's what made us strong. That's what made us real. Clara turned her face up to kiss him. I love you, Samuel Thornton. I love you too, Clara Thornton. More than I ever thought possible. The summer months passed in a blur of work and growth and preparation. Clara's belly swelled. The ranch flourished. The children grew taller and stronger, and more confident with each passing day. Thomas turned 15 and took on more responsibility, working alongside the ranch hands as an equal rather than a helper. Lizzie discovered a passion for teaching and started helping at the local schoolhouse 2 days a week. Will's wildness channeled into a gift for training horses that surprised everyone except Clara, who had always known there was more to her difficult son than met the eye. Mary learned to cook from Lily and declared she would open a restaurant someday. Jamie followed Sam everywhere, asking endless questions and absorbing everything like a sponge. Sarah stopped being afraid of anything and started being afraid of nothing, which was somehow worse. And Eli and Lily began building a cabin of their own on a piece of land Sam had given them as a wedding gift. Not far from the main house, but far enough for privacy, far enough to build their own life while staying close to family. Are you happy? Clara asked her sister one afternoon, watching her direct the placement of a window frame. Truly happy. Lily turned her face glowing with something Clara recognized. Love. Contentment. Purpose. I'm happier than I ever thought I could be, Lily said. I spent so many years trying to be what Eleanor wanted, trying to fit into a life that was never meant for me. And now, she gestured at the cabin, at the land, at the life she was building. Now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with the people I'm supposed to be with. I'm glad you came to Wyoming. I'm glad you found us. I didn't find you. You found me. You blazed a trail, Clara. You showed me that it was possible to walk away from everything I knew and build something better. Lily crossed to her sister and took her hands. You saved my life. You know that, right? If you hadn't taken me in, if you hadn't shown me what a real family looks like, I don't know what would have happened to me. You would have survived. You're stronger than you think. Maybe. But I wouldn't have lived. There's a difference. Clara pulled her sister into a hug, or as much of a hug as her 8-month belly would allow. I love you, Lily. I love you too. Always have. Always will. September brought the baby. Clara's labor started at midnight, gentle contractions that grew stronger as the hours passed. Sam sent Thomas riding for Doc Price while Lily and Martha Crawford helped Clara to bed. The children were banished to the barn with Eli, who did his best to keep them calm despite his own obvious worry. The labor was long, harder than any Clara had experienced before. By dawn, she was exhausted, every contraction pulling a groan from her throat. You're doing beautifully, Doc Price said, checking her progress. Not much longer now. You said that 3 hours ago. And I meant it. Babies come when they come. The doctor's voice was calm, reassuring. Your body knows what to do. Trust it. Sam held her hand through all of it. He'd refused to leave, refused to be banished to the barn with the children. I wasn't there when they were born, he'd said, meaning her first 6. I'm not missing this one. He was true to his word. When the final push came, when Clara screamed with the effort of bringing new life into the world, Sam was right beside her, his hand in hers, his voice in her ear. You're doing it. You're almost there. I love you, Clara. I love you so much. And then finally a cry, thin and strong and perfect. It's a girl, Doc Price announced, lifting the baby into the light. A healthy, beautiful girl. Clara reached for her daughter, tears streaming down her face. The baby was red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect. She had dark hair like Sam, and Clara's eyes, and a cry that could wake the dead. Hello, sweetheart, Clara whispered. We've been waiting for you. Sam leaned over them both, his weathered face wet with tears he didn't bother to hide. She's beautiful. God, Clara, she's so beautiful. She needs a name. They had discussed names for months, going back and forth between options, unable to agree. But looking at her daughter now, Clara knew exactly what to call her. Hope, she said. After the foal Will named. After everything we've been through to get here." "Hope Thornton." Sam tested the name. "Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right." The children came streaming in an hour later, tumbling over each other in their eagerness to meet their new sister. Thomas held her first, his 14-year-old hands surprisingly gentle. Then Lizzie, who cried. Then Will, who looked uncomfortable but couldn't stop staring. Mary sang a lullaby she'd learned from Lily. Jamie declared that Hope was the best baby he'd ever seen, ignoring the fact that she was the only baby he'd ever seen. And Sarah, now 4 years old, climbed onto the bed and curled up against Clara's side, one tiny hand reaching out to touch her new sister's cheek. "Family," Sarah said simply. "Our family." Clara looked around the room at all of them. 6 children from Kentucky, now Thorntons in every way that mattered. A new baby born of love and hope and second chances. A husband who had given her everything she never knew she needed. A sister who had found her own happiness against all odds. This was what she had traveled 1,500 miles for. This was what she had survived blizzards and threats and heartbreak for. This was what Daniel had died believing she deserved. A home, a family, a future. Sam caught her eye across the room, and she saw her own thoughts reflected in his gray gaze. They had built something here, something real and lasting and good. Something that Victor Ashford's schemes and Eleanor's cruelty couldn't touch. Something that belonged to them alone. "I love you," Clara mouthed to him. "I love you too," he mouthed back. And in her arms, Hope Thornton slept peacefully, dreaming whatever baby's dream, surrounded by the family who would love her for the rest of her life. 3 years later, Clara stood on the porch of Thornton Creek Ranch and watched her family spread out across the land that was now half hers in law and fully hers in heart. Thomas, 17, now rode with the ranch hands as an equal, preparing to take over management of the North Pastures. Lizzie had started teaching full-time at the Willow Creek School and was being courted by the new minister's son. Will had gentled a dozen horses and was earning a reputation throughout the territory. Mary helped Lily run a small bakery in town that had become the social center of the community. Jamie and Sarah were inseparable troublemakers who kept everyone on their toes. And Hope, 3 years old, with her father's gray eyes and her mother's stubborn chin, was currently attempting to climb the porch railing, while Sam pretended not to watch her every move. "She's going to fall," Clara said mildly. "She's fine. I've got her." "You said that last week when she climbed the barn roof." "And she was fine then too." Sam grinned, scooping up his daughter before she could topple over the edge. "Weren't you, little one? You were perfectly fine." "I fly, Papa," Hope declared, "like a bird. Maybe when you're older." Clara shook her head, but she was smiling. This was her life now. Chaos and love and laughter and the occasional near disaster. She wouldn't trade it for anything. Eli and Lily's cabin stood completed on the ridge smoke rising from its chimney. They had their own child now, a boy named Daniel, after Clara's first husband. The gesture had made Clara weep with gratitude when Lily had suggested it. Martha Crawford still ruled Willow Creek society with an iron fist, though she'd softened considerably since becoming an unofficial grandmother to all the Thornton children. Hank from the livery had finally retired, leaving his business to Will's capable management. Doc Price still came around regularly, though these days it was more for social visits than medical emergencies. And somewhere far away, in a prison cell that would be his home for another decade, Victor Ashford was paying for his crimes. Clara rarely thought about him anymore. He had tried to destroy her life, and he had failed. That was all that mattered. "What are you thinking about?" Sam appeared beside her. Hope balanced on his hip. "Everything. Nothing." Clara leaned into him. "Just grateful, I suppose." "Grateful for what?" "For you. For the children. For this life." She looked up at him, this man she had come to love more deeply than she'd ever thought possible. "I was so scared when I came here, Sam. So scared that I was making a mistake. That you wouldn't want us. That we'd be a burden." "You were never a burden." "I know that now. But then standing in that blizzard with a sick child and 5 terrified children and nowhere else to go? Clara shook her head. I thought we'd reached the end. I thought there was nothing left. And instead, it was the beginning. Yes, the best beginning. Hope squirmed in Sam's arms, demanding to be put down so she could resume her climbing adventures. Sam set her carefully on the porch, keeping one eye on her, while he pulled Clara close with his free arm. You know what I think about sometimes, he said. What? That advertisement I put in the paper. How close I came to not doing it. I'd written it out 3 times before I finally sent it. Kept telling myself it was foolish, that no woman worth having would answer a stranger's call. And yet I did. And yet you did. Sam's voice was thick with emotion. You came across the country with 6 children and nothing but hope. You survived everything that should have broken you. You built a life out of ashes and made me part of it. We built it together. Maybe. But you started it. You took the first step. You chose to come here to trust a stranger, to believe that something better was possible. Sam cupped her face in his hands. That took courage, Clara. More courage than anything I've ever done. I didn't feel courageous. I felt desperate. That's what courage is, being desperate and doing the hard thing anyway. Clara rose on her toes to kiss him, tasting the familiar warmth of the man who had become her home. Behind them, Hope was attempting to climb the railing again. Somewhere in the yard, Jamie and Sarah were arguing. Thomas's voice carried from the barn, giving orders to the hands, with an authority that made Clara proud. This was her life. Imperfect and chaotic, and more beautiful than anything she'd ever imagined. Sam, thank you. For what? For putting that advertisement in the paper. For meeting me at the station even when you couldn't walk straight. For choosing us all 7 of us when you could have had anyone. I couldn't have had just anyone. I needed you. Sam's gray eyes held hers. Only you. Only ever you. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple. Clara's family was scattered across the land she now called home, each of them living the lives they'd built together. And in her arms was the man who had given her everything, asking nothing in return but her heart. She had come to Wyoming a widow, with 6 children and no future. She would leave this world a wife, a mother, a grandmother, surrounded by love that had grown from the seeds of second chances. The mail-order bride had finally arrived, and she was home.